Hello, this is Todd Bowman with a follow-up from the Connective Sex seminar. I know there were a number of questions that folks had submitted or requested more information about, so I thought we'd take just a few brief minutes today to expound on some of the questions that individuals had. Just to recap, the O model of human sexuality is comprised of three parts: oxytocin, or pair bonding; offspring, or fertilization; and orgasm, or this pleasure or gratification component of human sexuality. Again, like we talked about in the seminar, the unique aspect of the O model of human sexuality is the fact that all three of these parts are designed to operate simultaneously. So the healthiest model, the healthiest functioning part of the O model, is when all three are negotiated into the sexual relationship in the context of marriage. Pleasure, gratification through orgasm, procreation, fertilization in the form of offspring are two tiers. And then the top tier is this notion of pair bonding, kind of the sacramental component of the marriage relationship found in sexuality, where we're literally experiencing the closeness and the fullness of one another as a reflection of the closeness that we're designed to experience with God. Now, the one question that many folks often have is the fertilization dynamic, and if that's true that the model is designed to operate in the fullness and kind of be held in tension with orgasm, offspring, and oxytocin kind of happening simultaneously or in balance is another way of looking at it. When we see one part of the model get off kilter, it tends to throw the whole model out of sorts. A great example is when fertilization is removed. In the presentation we did, we talked a little bit about infertility. And there are other instances where, for whatever reason, fertilization might be taken out of the model. A lot of the research done by John Money researched rats, and what he did is he exposed them to heroin in one trial and then put a stent in their brain and stimulated basically an orgasmic response neurologically. And what he found is that 10 times out of 10 rats would choose the deep brain stimulation that facilitated an orgasmic experience over the synthetic dopamine production that coincides with ingesting heroin. So we can see that dopamine, and more than dopamine, the entire experience of orgasm is a very powerful, probably the most powerful experience neurologically that we can have. So what we see happen is when fertilization is taken off out of the model, again through infertility, through other things, we have to be super careful in how we negotiate sexuality. If it's pair bonding versus pleasure, right, or oxytocin versus orgasm, using the O's of the O model, what we see is that typically the mammalian brain is going to naturally be geared toward experiencing high amounts of pleasure instead of facilitating deeper levels of connection. So part of this, if for whatever reason, through infertility, through contraception, if one part of the model is not operating or brought into the discussion for whatever reason, we have to place a high emphasis on engaging in high amounts of connection sexually, but even more amounts of non-sexual touch, non-sexual connection, and utilizing the tools that we talked about that are high oxytocin production, high pair bonding activities, so as to not fall prey to some of the addictive tendencies that show up when we're dependent on high amounts of orgasm or pleasure. Again, not wanting our brains to be hijacked with a descent into dependence on orgasm, but to, again, activate the relational parts of our brain that allow us to exist with high amounts of morality and empathy, connection with one another.